Greetings, everyone. It is me, Known Wells, creator of Yumi Empathy. I am a feely human. I am a silly boy. I also like to embrace vulnerability. I think it's been a really good thing for my sanity and therapy. And that's what Yumi Empathy is all about. It's about vulnerability and openness and spreading empathy and kindness into the world and creating a safe space for us to chat. Today's episode is with my friend Alethea, and we are talking about failure. And just really proud of my friend Alethea for sharing her story and her experience with failure, and we talk about how to overcome failure and how to just be in failure and be more accepting of it, and how culture defines failure and how that affects our perspectives on failure, and how failure, impacts our mental health. So it's a really, really sort of long, overarching conversation. We get into talk about the Philippines. We talk about abortion and religion and all sorts of different things. It was a really great conversation. It was really fun catching up with my friend Alethea. The disclaimer for the show is that Yumi Empathy is for informational and or entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And before we get into the episode, please go rate and review Yumi Empathy in iTunes. It's a very quick and free way to support the show. Please do that. It would be great, and it means a lot to me. And if you want to support the show financially, you can do so by supporting me at Patreon, patreon.com/Yumi Empathy, for as little as 25 cents an episode. Easy peasy. And if you want to give a little bit more, I give away stickers and guest spots and all sorts of other goodies. And you get some behind-the-scenes photos and bonus audio and all sorts of good stuff like that. Anyways, any hoozles, enjoy this episode, my chat with Alethea, my friend, on the topic of failure. Welcome to episode 14 of Yumi Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of Yumi Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire conversation and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. Yumi Empathy is a safe place, a conversation between friends, a place to inspire the empathy and beauty in all of us. Today, in episode 14, I'm thrilled to have my friend, book nerd, #1 Hamilton fan, and one of the most wholeheartedly supportive people I know, Alethea Allarey. Did I screw up the last name?
You got it right. No,
okay.
You know what? My name is Alethea Allarey. I'm Known's friend.
Allarey.
Yes.
Okay. I was struggling with that one.
That's okay. Everyone does. It's also a struggle to get people to spell it, even in the days of copy and paste. I feel like it's hard to get wrong now. And they still do. It's all right. It's all good.
Well, I empathize with your your burden with the unique name.
The name struggles.
The name struggles,
Know it.
yes. So thanks for being on You Me Empathy.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Before we get into your origin story, let's do a check-in. This is part of the show where we just do an emotional check-in to see how we're doing. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like considering I had kind of odd minor struggle going on the last couple of weeks in that my college graduation was yesterday, and I had a lot of anxiety over whether I should go or not, and actually walk at my graduation. I ended up working instead, which actually like relieved a lot of my anxiety because then I didn't have to plan like who are the four people that I invite, three really because my husband's got to be one of them. My parents don't live here. It was just like the pressure of who gets to go, who feels slighted because I didn't invite them, and then it's a long drive there, and it was a bunch of money, like a whole, circus to try to get your cap and gown and all of this. Like it's expensive and it takes time, and I was just like, I'm not up for that challenge. I was just a couple of weeks ago was the last day to get the cap and gown, and I kind of decided then, I was like, no, we're just not doing this.
Yeah. Well,
but now it's past.
Yeah, it's past, and you're feeling better.
I'm feeling way better.
Oh, I think that's it sounds like it was a good sort of self-care choice.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm sure my mom is a little disappointed. I'm technically her first child that graduated from college. My brother has gone a bunch of times but never finished. And then my husband graduated a few years ago. And the joke at the time was that, oh, I finally have a college graduate for a child, even though he's not her biological child. So I think that was another thing. And we'll talk more about, because this is my topic of failure, failing to meet expectations for other people. But that was probably one of the things that could have made her really happy. It did not happen. There was no photo op. I did get a friend who took a photo of the college graduation program with my name in it and texted it to me. Like she Facebook messaged it to me from her daughter's ceremony, which she was attending.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
It was a long struggle. I'm 39. I totally thought I would have done this, many years ago, like almost, probably 2 decades ago, close to. And I did not. Failure number one.
Well, we'll get into that, but I don't think it's a failure. We all have our own journeys, and I personally feel like going into college like right after high school is problematic and has been sort of borne out to be a problem and a challenge for a lot of young people. So
yes,
there's that perspective.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. My check-in. So this week, it started off in a bit of a struggle. I woke up one morning and just was overwhelmingly sad and was just crying for most of the morning. And I didn't really understand where it was coming from. Mm-hmm. But I sort of worked through it and was just kind of focused on just being in it and trying to figure out where it was coming from. And then I had a really great conversation with Jessica about, we've been married for, over 7 years, 7.5 years, and we've been together for over 10 years. And a thing we've learned about each other is that we just have different emotional, we operate different emotionally. And especially in the last few years where I've been sort of more actively focused on being openly emotional and transparent because I'm finding through therapy and whatnot that doing so is just a much more healing experience to me. And Jessica operates a little differently. So there are times where we can rub up against each other in ways that we don't mean it to be like frustrating to each other, but like emotionally, like there's some incompatibilities. And so we talked through that, and it was like a really healthy conversation. And through that chat, I decided that I probably need to go back to see a psychiatrist just to have a conversation, to see if there's maybe a medication that would help my depression and things like that. So, the week started with that sort of sadness, but I think, it was a productive, healthy outcome. And so that's where I'm at.
That's good. I mean, that's kind of all you can hope for. I feel like failure is that same way. It's like, it's not over just having that feeling of being sad or being down or that you failed something. It doesn't mean everything's over. It just means you stop and identify what's happening and try to, I don't know, problem solve, I guess.
Yeah. I think, I forgot who said it, but gosh, it might have even been like, in the book, The Body Keeps a Score, which I'm reading right now, but, they said stop. I think it was like stop. It was like a stop, observe, like be in it, and then sort of proceed. So it was like you're experiencing a thing. Take a moment and stop and be in it, and sort of explore it a little bit, and also be kind to yourself and be patient. And then through that process, you're going to learn some things and then proceed. And then sometimes it's okay if you don't learn some things. Sometimes, like, it's hard to pinpoint where your sadness comes from, or why your bout of depression is kicking up again. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint.
And sometimes I feel like there's no reason. I think,
yeah,
I felt recently that my husband and I also had a little bit of like a relationship win, in that there was a day where he was like asking how I was, and I said, "Oh, I feel a little depressed." And he said, "Oh, why are you depressed?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe there's no reason." And he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, like I got it."
yeah.
Like, I don't have to explain myself to him, like, especially if the answer is, I don't know what's wrong, I just happen to feel this way. Like, I think this is the first, and I've been with my husband for a long time. What year is it? 2018. We've been together 18 years.
Wow.
Really close to that. I feel like, probably, yeah.
That's amazing.
And, I mean, our relationship's not perfect. It's definitely had ups and downs and times that were, butting heads, that kind of thing. But I think, you don't stay together this long without doing that problem solving thing where you're like you said, you observe, and then you're in it for a little bit, and then you proceed.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's
I think
a really good way to break it down.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I think you're right in that sometimes there really is no reason for, what you're going through emotionally, like, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
The key, I think, is always to be patient and kind to yourself, and those sorts of things are important when we experience that.
And I think the awareness is such a big thing. I feel like I run into a lot of people that the reason why they're acting out or stressed out with themselves is because they miss that step one of like self-awareness.
Yep, totally. Well, let's get into your origin story, Alethea. Why don't you just share a little bit about yourself and where this maybe even start like not from the very beginning, but
I
you
was
know,
born.
just
I'm
like
kidding.
when you sort of came into yourself as like being aware of like maybe some mental health struggles.
Yeah, I actually probably started pretty early in life of being aware of my emotional and psychological state, only because, and this is like going straight to the heart of it. I was molested when I was a child, and I didn't deal with that for some time. It was the kind of thing where, and I grew up in the 80s, like I was born in 78, and I grew up in the 80s, and there wasn't really, I didn't see a TV movie about it until I was maybe like 12. And when I was around 11 or 12 was around the time that I was like, what the, the realization of like, oh, that was wrong. That should not have happened. That was really bad. Um, and then starting to, so around the age of 11, 12 years old, kind of learning about um, sex and learning about, like autonomy that obviously someone took away from me, quite a bit longer ago than I can imagine.
Yeah.
I actually didn't tell my parents about it until I was like 31.
Wow.
So within the last decade, yeah. And it's kind of like, it wasn't even like a blame situation or like you should have protected me, that kind of thing. It was more just like this thing happened to me. I've worked through it on my own. I just thought you should know that this was the situation, and they've been very supportive. Like, I don't think we've ever even talked about it since then. But they've always just been so constantly supportive and understanding of me. Um, this was just like one weird hiccup in our lives of like, wow, that was terrible.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's a deeply traumatic experience.
It was, and I think a lot of the way that I function now is actually partially because of that. Um, Learning about emotion and learning about relationships
Hmm.
started so early in my life because of that really horrible thing that happened. So in a way, it, it I put a lot of work into making it a good thing, despite the fact that intrinsically it was very, very bad.
Yeah, we don't need to dwell on this experience for
Sure.
too long, but I am interested in your growth journey through that experience,
Oh
and
yeah, I'm
what.
happy to talk through it in more detail in another episode. But
Okay,
just like that's the seed, and then
yeah,
I think that growing up, it just me separate from that incident. I'm a very sort of like type A personality, I would say. Like,
mm-hmm,
I was the first grandchild. I was kind of spoiled by my relatives and grandparents, and also sort of my ability to, like, I could read very early. I could understand things very early. I sort of behaved like a grown up a lot of the time. This is what I would hear growing up, was like, oh, she's very mature for her age. And so I think I really internalized that and made it like, I'm a straight A student. I'm president of my fourth grade class. I'm, you know, the best at almost everything, except I'm really terrible at sports. Like, that is just not, it's not my jam.
So did you um do you feel like culturally or familially a pressure to be top in everything?
I think that I did culturally in terms of going to school. I went to a Catholic school in the Philippines for about 6, 7 years, and I remember in fifth or sixth grade learning about these students in Japan who, because they didn't get top marks, basically jumped off the top of the roof of their school.
Hmm.
Which it was before Snopes and before the the
Right,
internet. I couldn't
right.
really Google to verify that, but I believed in those things, and I was like, oh crap, like if I don't get this good grade, I should probably kill myself, which is a terrible thought to have when you're 11 or 12 years old. And I didn't do it. Like I didn't fail. So I got very, very good grades in sixth grade. And I did not jump off the top of a building. But I think that, you know, I'm talking about it 30 years later. It's definitely an idea that has stuck with me, even though I don't believe in it now. I'm sure there was a time when I was a lot younger where I did believe in that expectation.
And it sounds like you are putting this pressure entirely on yourself. Are you getting any from family or?
I think there would always be a little bit of mild family. Like my mom's older sister is a doctor, so is her husband. My parents are both architects. Um, Everybody in my sort of mom's nuclear family that I grew up with was very successful. On my dad's side, they're, you know, actually very wealthy because they are very frugal people, good business people, always show up for work, never call out sick kind of folks.
Yeah.
And so I think it was sort of latent in the way that they lived their lives, but no one ever really went over to me and was like, you aren't doing good enough, partially because I was doing really well most of the time. But I don't think I ever got real pressure from relatives to do better than I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was all internal. It was all me pushing to be the best.
And if you weren't the best, you'd consider that a failure?
I have an anecdote that I love to tell about. I was in seventh or eighth grade, and I got I think I had algebra, which was already advanced for the grade that I was in. I probably should not have been in algebra until high school, but I had really struggled through a semester or quarter of algebra and ended up with a B plus. It was my first B plus ever. I literally had gotten straight A's until I was 13 years old. And I remember that sort of dread of going home and opening the mailbox and having to show my mom my report card. And she opened it and she was like, why are you so sad? Like, why are you so upset? And she opens it and she reads it and she's like, oh, you got a B plus. And I was like, yeah, I know, I tried really hard. I'm sorry. I'm such a failure. And she was like laughing. She laughed her face off because when and I didn't know this until then, it never came up, but when she was a child in elementary school, she was such a terrible student. It's amazing she even graduated high school. She would actually she was such a book nerd, and this is where I get it from, that instead of paying attention to what was happening up front with the class, she would try to sit in the back of somebody, like way in the back, but not too far back that they could see behind you. And there would be, those little student desks that have a little rack at the bottom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she literally used it as a book rack. She would put whatever novel she was reading down there, prop it up, turn the pages with her toes, basically, like take her shoes off and be turning pages with her toes, or like surreptitiously turn them, put her foot on it to hold it open, and would read a book or two a day.
Wow.
Instead of actually learning anything from school.
I mean, if that's not heroic, I don't know what is.
She got a lot of C's, a lot of D's.
Yeah. That sounds like,
so
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
It was really my expectation. I had defined my idea of success and being a good person and being a good student as you must have all A's all the time. And a B isn't that bad of a grade.
It's above average.
It's above average. I was upset for being just above average and not super excellent, over the top, fantastic.
Uh-huh. My personal anecdote to this is that I was more like your mom. I struggled in school and had trouble concentrating and did terrible at tests because I just like felt, just the timed test was like a nightmare to me. And I remember in my freshman year in high school, I was going to go out to play on the soccer team, but I couldn't play because I had like my first semester, I had a 1.8, a grade point average.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. And, I strangely I don't think at the time felt much self-shame. I mean, I definitely got a lot of anger from my parents,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I was never, even like through college, I was never a great student. I was always the type that, especially in high school and college, that like had, especially like as I'm getting more focused on English and books and things, that had the perspective that like I would bring up like, oh, this is like, I read a story. This is my perspective on this thing. And everyone would kind of look at me like I was a freak. And that just sort of intensified my introversion and wanting to like hide myself. But enough about me. So
No, I love hearing about you. This is, I think this is how I learned to empathize is, I think there was a long period in my teens where it was all about me, which I feel like it's probably most teenagers. And I wasn't really listening to other people's stories. And it made it really hard to sort of process what I was going through emotionally because I had no barometer for, I had no idea what was expected other than what I'd read in books, which some of it's, kind of true to life. I feel like people try to be more true to life in more contemporarily written books and television and so forth. But like I had television, like American television and movies to gauge things by, but not necessarily real stories. I remember my mom when I was in 7th or 8th grade pointing out to me, I feel like you approach life like you're in a television show. And that you have these expectations that are built on stories that are fictionalized that you've consumed, but you're not looking enough at the real people that are around you because, not to say that everything you see on television or in movies or read in books is untrue. She read a lot of books. I mean, I already have, the pace for her is about 2 to 3 books a day.
Yeah,
even
that's
now,
amazing.
Even to this day. But there's always like that kernel of truth that you can get from fiction, which is, I think, why you and I like it so much. But it's not a replacement for getting to know real people and trying to understand and empathize with all the, millions of variations of how life could go and how people can feel.
Yeah, I mean, the great late Roger Ebert called movies empathy machines, and it's the same with books, stories in any form. They're we look at other people's stories and their experiences, and we relate and we put ourselves in their shoes, and it's one of the best empathy sort of exercises ever. It's why we love stories. Yeah. What, when you're feeling this pressure as a teenager to get, straight A's, what kind of emotionally are you? Maybe I should just ask a question. Was your family life, like in your family, like were you guys emotionally open with each other, transparent? Like how did that work?
I think that we were fairly open in a sense. My parents would always schedule these family meetings, which is today, like it cracks me up in Arrested Development. in the comedy Arrested Development, David Cross's Tobias always yells out "family meeting," and I was like, oh, that's exactly how my family meeting was.
I love that show
Someone would
so
call out
much.
"family meeting." So we still do that, even though it's just me and my husband and two cats. Um, and we would sort of go through a checklist of like, okay, what's happening with school? Do you need this permission slip signed? But so there was always like this platform of I could talk about this. But I think I very rarely ventured to share of myself at those times because I was very, very self-centered and focused on myself. And I'm having this problem, but I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
I don't need your help.
Okay.
And I think that on a very practical level, my parents were very helpful. It was, those kinds of kids that are like, they put so much work into a book report or, I need to make this science project or whatever, but they're also really terribly organized.
Yep.
So it's always like the night before everyone's up until 4 a.m. Like you got to get on the bus by 7 o'clock and it's 4 a.m. and you're still gluing things.
Right.
My parents were very, I think because also they operate kind of like that. They've got a month to do something, but nothing really happens until like a couple of days before the deadline. But they would all sort of buy in and pitch in. And so that was very helpful to kind of like stave off some of my, bigger disgraces. I always had something to turn in.
Yeah. When you experienced that first B plus, how did that affect your day to day or your approach in class? Did you change anything? Did you apply a new level of intense focus? Like, how did that affect you?
I think I actually relaxed a little more, and it was because of my mom sharing that story of, look at me now. Yeah, I'm a college graduate. I was a professional architect, but I got C's and D's in elementary school, and it was all right. I think she tried to make a point to me that your grade is not, it is a reflection of the work that you put in, but that ultimately, when you run across a failure, when you fail at something, even if it's not an F and it's a B plus, it's not the end of the world. Life goes on. It's not that no one cares. I'm sure somebody cares out there, and I cared about my GPA a lot, and she cared about me and wanted what I think most parents want for their child is to feel good about themselves and to build a good future and get a good job.
Yeah.
And she said she really forced me to look at the big picture of like, well, this is just one grade. How many grades have you ever gotten in your life? And you have, probably at least 8 more years of schooling to go. And how many more grades are you going to get there? I think she really forced me to pull back, not focus on myself so much. And, I would still put in the work. I just wouldn't, sorry, my stomach is rumbling. I just wouldn't make myself crazy, I guess. I learned to ease up the pressure on myself of trying to make everything perfect.
Mm-hmm. What a great experience. I mean, that's your mom shared her perspective, which you respected, and it gave you this just, because as we know, like kids, teenagers, like we're, there's no one in the world but ourselves. Like we're all little self-interested assholes. And
everything's like 1,000% more intense than anything ever when you're a teenager.
Oh, yes, exactly, exactly. And your mom giving you that perspective that's amazing. What a like moving experience.
It was, and I think it's also funny. Like I didn't even hear my dad's side of the story until this last Christmas.
Okay.
Where I have a younger cousin who I think he's 16 or so years old now, and is in the process of applying to colleges. And he wants to be an architect also. And he applied to the school where my dad graduated from and got in. But I hadn't known that they were mentioning some other friend of the family, and they were like, oh, yeah, he was, whatever the guy is who is not the valedictorian, but like the number two in the class. And apparently my dad was the valedictorian of his class.
Wow.
So I was like glad not to learn that story until way after I had finished all my schooling.
Yeah, because you think that would have put some more pressure on you, like, I gotta. Yeah.
I think the B plus story kind of gave me perspective, really relieved a lot of the pressure that I had been applying to myself for, a decade or so. But then I think it also like swung me in the other direction where it was like, well, I could do this or I could not do this. Like, it's just whatever.
So you became a little bit
20s.
more cavalier in your 20s?
Yes. Yes, in my 20s. I think I kept changing my major. So I started going to school probably 15 or 16 years ago. I actually first really hated school. And we've been talking a lot about sort of school or work failures. There's other types of failure that I wanted to talk about as well. But
of course,
it did just the last bit on that is that I feel like it also swung me in the opposite direction of like, you know what, this isn't working out. And I would drop the class. And thus it took me like 14 years to actually get my bachelor's. This is my third or fourth major change, I think. And one of the reasons too that I ended up sticking with this one was because in California, especially the schools, especially the public schools that I can afford to go to are so overcrowded that once you reach a certain threshold of, I don't know, 90, 96 credits or something like that, they're like, that's it. You can't change your major anymore. You have to transfer schools to change your major because they just want you to graduate and go out into the world and be a student or come back for graduate school or whatever. But I reached that threshold at my my second school, which was Cal State Northridge, CSUN. And they were like, yeah, sorry, you can petition to get your major changed at this point from speech language pathology to creative writing, but you probably won't get it. You're a super, super senior now.
Yeah. Like you're camped out, you have a bed, you have a cot a permanent cot in the building. You gotta go.
You need to commit.
Yeah. Yeah. So outside of the context of school, how have you experienced feelings of failure?
One of them is a little bit of a bridge between school and not school.
Okay.
When I was a junior in high school, I was part of my school newspaper. I was eventually the co-editor-in-chief of the school newspaper because A+, very driven person. We had basically blown up our newspaper into what the previous year had maybe like 9 students running the paper and an advisor to 108 students running the paper.
Wow.
It was massive growth. It actually came out of someone in the previous class had misplaced a 0 on a printing bill, and they had done like this fancy extra pages 4-color edition, which put them in hock basically with their printer, which they found out at the end of the year. And my journalism teacher recruited his AP English classes. One of the students was me, into trying to fundraise and like revive the newspaper. As a result, almost all of us joined the paper the next year, and a ton of other people also signed up for the paper. And we made them a ton of money, actually. So that ended up, what was a failure on someone's part ended up being a huge success. But then towards the um, end of my time there, I actually made a really egregious journalistic mistake. The short version of it is that someone was writing a review of a play that I was very invested in. So it was a conflict of interest, really. Um, uh, and I, as an editor, was reading the review as someone who was emotionally very invested in the music and drama department, reading it going, oh, you didn't like it. I don't want to publish this. And I went to my music teacher and told him about it. And my music teacher told my journalism professor. And my journalism professor was like, what the heck? You can't do that. It was just a really, I think I had blinders on probably at that point in high school because I was trying to get my best grades. I was trying to be worthy of being co-editor. I was trying to be in the music and drama department. I was trying to do too much.
Sure.
And I lost sight of other people and just the rules. And I ended up making this really grave mistake. I ended up basically getting ejected from the class. I resigned. I don't remember if I was fired from or resigned from the paper. I think that's probably just my mind trying to take care of me.
Can you? I'm not 100% clear on what mistake you made.
So prior to the publication of the article, I basically approached the person that had, was invested in the success of the school play, told them the contents of the article, that it was going to be a very negative review. And instead of, trying to work it out or allow, because I know it's a high school newspaper, but it's still the free press.
Sure.
The person who wrote that article, who's probably doing amazing things today in her life, was totally entitled to her opinion and totally entitled to print that opinion. I, as an editor, was not entitled to, try to make stuff happen to make that, like, there was nothing I could have done to make that review not printed.
Yeah, so you didn't want to print the negative review.
Right.
Got it.
And somehow that translated to me going to my teacher who was in the music program. And then, of course, he complained, like, why are you going to print this bad review of our school play, to my journalism teacher? And my journalism teacher was like, wow, this is journalism ethics 101. You cannot talk about this basically out of school. As an editor, I, shirked my duty. And, I think there is that element of, like, as an editor, you decide what to publish and what not to. But I was putting my agenda first of, I want the music, or I want people to go see the spring play, and people aren't going to go see it if we publish this negative review,
right,
which the critic was entirely entitled to write and to publish.
Right. So how did that experience affect you?
I hung on to it for a long time. I still think about it now and then. And I think it's that learning thing of, I felt horrible about it emotionally for years and years. I remember running into that girl at work. I used to work at Borders in the same town where I went to high school and lived for a long time.
Borders? What are those?
Borders bookstores.
I'm just kidding.
Borders,
sorry.
Books and music.
Rest in peace, Borders.
Rest in peace. I remember running into her many years later, and she was very kind to me. And I still, like, all the flood of emotion of the shame that I felt from having made that mistake came rushing back. And it had been at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And it felt as fresh of a failure as if I had just done it and not learned anything from it at all.
Uh-huh.
And I think it took a long time also for me to be able to really internalize the ethics mistake, like the journalism ethics mistake that I made. And that rule kind of applies to a lot of things, like when you work for an employer, the certain things that you can and can't talk about with other people.
Right.
You have to gauge, well, is this someone who is part of our company? Is this an employee of our company who's entitled to know this? Or is this someone who works for a competitor, or is just an outsider that has no right to have this knowledge at all?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that, but I still think it took a long time, despite the sort of catastrophic nature of that. It changed my whole school life. I barely had 2 classes, I think, in senior year. That was after that class. I basically dropped everything. I started just TAing, or just teacher's assistant. There were a few people who were very kind and were like, well, you have 1 million credits anyway. Like, you just need to be physically present in school and doing something for this hour or 2 of the day.
Yeah.
I think I had an English class and a government class that was required, and that was it.
What was going on in your head emotionally? Because, I mean, I think I can put myself in your shoes and understanding, the type of person you are based on these stories. But I'm curious about, like, what are you beating yourself up? Like, what was that emotional experience like?
Absolutely. I just felt like so stupid. I felt like such an idiot. I really beat myself up I knew that rule. Like, I'd done an orientation for an incoming class of people who had just newly joined our school newspaper. And I'm sure that I went over that with them, the conflict of interest and the, confidentiality of sources, and just kind of like your responsibility as a journalist, which, if we're just looking at mainstream media today, I feel is such a joke, but we were very serious about it in high school, and I was very personally serious about it. And I had failed to obey my own rule that I valued. And I just felt like an idiot for having followed my emotions, and and I think I also realized, like, I'd been told before, like, my mom was very good at telling me and reminding me how self-centered I was. Up until that point, and she was no longer living with me then. My family actually moved here for a couple of years, and then they moved back to the Philippines. And so I think I probably called my mom to tell her what happened, and she also was having a hard time understanding why it was such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had invested a lot of time. We spent a lot of after school hours working on the paper, way beyond anything that even our journalism professor or teacher had seen, and essentially probably breaking some rules. Like, he trusted us quite a lot. Like, he would just, we had those classroom doors where, like, you can just lock it.
Uh-huh.
But if someone's still inside the room, they can just open the door and let someone in. And so the way that he worked it so that we could all get our work done and have a place to stay, and we nested in there. We put snacks in the filing cabinet. Like, we rearranged all the paper and, rubber cement and everything in the supply closet so we could have a snack closet. And because we figured out, with 108 students on the team, if we each gave $5 a semester to the office manager. So we had one student who was literally just the office manager for 2 journalism classes. And she would periodically go to Smart and Final and buy a bunch of snacks and stuff. We had a mini fridge. We had ice cream sandwiches.
This is a legit operation. And
it was legit.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys clearly care deeply about, the paper.
It was our startup. Like, it was, we I cared about it a lot, and I know at least 100 people um, who are out there in the world that cared about that paper so much, and I betrayed their trust essentially. It was a big deal
Yeah.
for me. I don't know if any of them still remembers or thinks about that day, um, but it's something that I still pull out, when I'm thinking about something in terms of ethics or morals, like, okay, how did we do that again? How did I make that mistake? And how can I avoid making that mistake this time?
Yeah. I'd warrant to guess that they haven't thought of it since, and you're probably the only
I
one
kind of
that
hope not.
does. I mean, I would guarantee it. I mean, obviously I don't know them, but I mean, it just speaks to the type of person you were then, right? That you're holding on to this, and you care deeply about this thing, and you
And
made,
I
yeah,
apologize to the
yeah,
whole class.
yeah,
Like there was a an assembly, and the if you think of a typical high school classroom that can only sit about 50 people, there was 100 people crammed into this room that I had to say sorry to,
yeah.
and then basically never see them again.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but um, and I don't want to like minimize that experience, but I
No, not
will,
at all. But I
yeah,
think it's made me a better person
yeah,
to have. I think that I would have remained so self-centered and so, um, like cocksure,
mm.
just like overconfident in my abilities. Had I not had those things, those mistakes that I made, had I not learned from those mistakes that I made and kind of bounced back, you know,
yeah,
I I still carry a lot of shame over those things. Um, and I think you can tell by the way I can tell the story really like fairly clearly
hmm
that I think about it all the time because I still have it down pat.
hmm Well, and it sounds like you have learned and you're learning from that experience, and I think the lesson, like, I want to like give the listeners, the takeaways is that,
Mhm.
look, everyone fails. Like, we all like screw up from time to time. That's the nature of being a fallible human. And the key is, what are we gonna take from these experiences? And it sounds like you've taken a lot of good stuff. I mean, I would,
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
for me, from the perspective of a person who is really good at learning things and can learn things really quickly and learn things really well, it was so frustrating that to me that it took so many years to get to the point where I'm like, I'm turning 40 this year and I feel like I'm mostly well adjusted. I say that with caution. Um, and because I still run into situations, I think mostly at work, where part of me is still operating on that type A, really good at everything, must be number one, got to be the best, you know, meet and exceed all the goals kind of person that railroads over other people and not, you know, without taking into consideration the other 4 or 40 or however many people that you're working with, that they also have input and they also have intelligence and value and things to contribute. I feel like I had a tenure as a manager for a little while where I really would swing more into that old habit of like, well, I know the best way. I've thought about this and I'm a really smart person.
hmm
And I know the best way to do this, and you're all going to do what I say. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that was, a decade after I'd already had a couple of these experiences where it's like, well, no, it's not that big a deal. Calm down.
Well, I mean, it's a thing that, um, you know, just because like we make a mistake doesn't mean like, oh, then like I will no longer make that same mistake. We
Yeah.
always make the same like, and we're all different. Like, I know have things that I feel like I'm a failure at, and some of those things are ongoing things and things that I'm always learning from, and reminding myself that I shouldn't sort of dip back into it, because then it brings up all this negative stuff. So like, just because you experience a thing doesn't mean like, oh, all right, I learned and now I'm ready to move on with a fresh slate. Like we always dip back into those zones,
Old habits.
Yeah.
Or, just kind of like, if your personality is so ingrained to operate a certain way, it's so hard to change,
Yeah.
even when you're aware that there's a problem or there's, a shift that needs to happen. It's so hard to make that shift. Like, I know I should exercise. That's just a given. Like, it's not even like a body image thing, but just like a diabetes and heart disease avoidance thing that I know, my family is probably prone to on my mother's side. And yet, do I exercise? I do not. I've exercised once this year. It's now February.
Well, I mean, one a month, that's not bad.
That was more than the 0 a month that I did in December.
There you go. See, you're improving. Right after college, I like in college, I've always been like this, sort of like I have this romanticized vision of the world and myself sometimes. And a lot of that comes from reading stories and reading like, reading like Hemingway, reading Jack Kerouac, reading.
I totally understand. Me too.
Yeah. And so I moved to New York right after college. I went on like a couple month like road trip and then moved to New York, having no job prospects, but in the back of my brain thinking, hey, I'll just go here, I'll get a job, and, I'll like write the great American novel. And, of course, I did not do that. I wrote some things, and some of which were deeply disturbing and will not be viewed by anyone. But I still feel like, man, like I wish I would have written the great American novel then. And but I have to remind myself, like, look, that was an experience. You stumbled, it didn't work out, but hey, it doesn't mean you can't try again.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You just have to strike that balance in between. Like, I think there's probably some things in the world where you try it and you try it and you try it and you're like, oh, this isn't working. I should stop doing this thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe things that are bad for you.
Sure.
That are, objectively bad for you.
Sure.
But I also think, I don't get to the point where I am where I've graduated from school, or, there's certain skills and things that I have that I can do. I can write, I can sew, I can knit, but I didn't get to those places just by trying once and it worked out perfectly. I tried and I made mistakes and I tried to fix them, and I made different mistakes and I tried to fix those. And it's just a back and forth of working at stuff. Even just this whole mental health, empathy thing, I feel like it takes so much work. And there's some days I really just have to be like, you know what? We're just going to go home today. We're just going to go home and lie down and get in bed.
That's self-care.
Cocoon from everything and try again tomorrow.
Jessica worries about me sometimes because I do have, I have this thing in me. I think it's a good thing that I want to help everyone. And it has the potential of taking a lot out of me.
Yeah.
And I think Jessica's sensitive to it because I think my parents, for a time, used me emotionally. And so I have this tendency to be probably used emotionally. And so Jessica's very good at reminding me of that, because I just want to sort of give and give until I'm just physically and emotionally exhausted.
Yeah, I count that as one of the big relationship failures of my life is I have a friend who, um, she has bipolar disorder, and at the time was my coworker and my friend that when I met her. And I really felt like I put a lot of emotional work into trying to save her life. And at some point, I was so drained that I finally had to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And she's alive today. She just posted on my Facebook yesterday, because I had posted the picture of my name in the graduation program to congratulate me. So she's alive, and I didn't fail to keep her alive. She kept herself alive.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that for years after, I didn't necessarily end the relationship as in like, hey, I'm not your friend anymore, but like, I'm sorry, I won't be answering the phone at 3 a.m. and, you can't show up at my door, at midnight crying, and we go sit in your car for 4 hours and cry and talk and whatever, even though I feel like, yeah, I do want to be that person that can give you the support that you need, but also I'm not a mental health professional, and it takes a lot out of me to the
Yes.
point where my life is also getting destroyed. And
Yes.
there needs to be a boundary of like, okay, you need to go to a professional and I need to butt out of your business for a while, until I'm stable enough that you can lean on me again.
Absolutely. That's perfect insight. Like boundaries, healthy boundaries are important, and reminding ourselves that, I mean, this is like an ongoing theme in this show, is like we can't, really help each other if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, that's
I
a
think,
lesson I learn over and over again.
yeah. And I think it's also the, because I do carry around this feeling that I am like a superwoman,
Hmm.
like that I am a Wonder Woman that can do everything really well all the time. That is just that intrinsic, uh, like I grew up thinking this of myself, and then people affirmed it along the way.
Yeah.
But then it's not actually true. I'm still fallible. I get tired. I get sick. I get depressed. And, I just, uh, I think giving yourself a break of like, oh, wait, we've done too much. We've spent too much now. We need to save up,
Yeah.
um, to move on.
But
Um,
yeah. I mean, you're both things, right? You are, I mean, from my perspective, you are a superwoman, and you can do so much. I'm always in awe of the things that you're doing, but you are also
Thank
fallible,
you.
and you're welcome. You're also fallible, and you also get tired and exhausted just like any human.
Thank you. And I thank you for the compliment, and thank you for the understanding, because it really is, you can't be the one thing all the time.
No.
And I would hate to be the spent person also all the time that just, I can't even.
Yeah. No. No, we're
It's really trying to find that balance.
balance, yeah. And we go through ebbs and flows. Like that's part of the journey. So what you talked about like specific sort of like, experiences in terms of like your feeling of failure, or how are you doing today with feeling like a failure? Even like little things, like I'll give you an example. For me, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing well. I feel like a failure in terms of quote living well, like eating, treating my body well. Sometimes I feel like a failure of like, am I being the right person for my partner? Like how are you doing like day to day or with the feelings of failure?
I think day to day, it I find myself thinking a lot about the people, the relationships that I have in my life. For example, I feel like I'm doing really well with my husband right now. We've been together a long time, and we're really good friends, and we can probably count on one hand the number of times we've ever fought about anything. Um, but I think just that awareness that I need to, not that I need to be the same person for him all the time, but that I just need to be responsive and empathetic to what he needs and what I need out of the relationship. So I feel like that's going really well. Plus, we're very non-codependent people, actually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we can actually operate really well without each other. Like, we have this routine of we'll eat dinner together and watch TV on the couch, which feel like was a dream of mine when I was 9 because we were only allowed to watch TV once dinner was over.
Yeah.
And you could never eat in front of like, it was a special occasion when you could go sit in front of the television during dinner. And because I grew up in the 80s, that was pre DVR. It was kind of like, well, my show is on right now. I need to
Right.
go watch it right now. I can't wait until half an hour later. It's going to be over.
Exactly.
So I think we have a good routine with together times, and then also a really good routine of like, okay, meal's over. What are you going to go do? Okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to play video games all day. I'm going to do my chores that I didn't do yesterday. It just works out. So that one's really good. I feel like work is all right currently. And I feel like for my parents, haven't really been there for them. Partly because I live in a different country now. That's probably a whole other podcast episode topic, is relationship with parents.
Sure.
But like, I haven't delivered a grandchild, which I feel like it's not just their expectation that I'm accepting, but like, I think I grew up always valuing and wanting to be a mother. I absolutely understand that there are people out there that don't want to be parents, and that's also totally fine. But I thought I would have, 5 kids by now.
Yeah.
And I have 0. I actually have a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which results in irregular periods and then just difficulty getting pregnant.
Mm.
So I feel like my mom's health is not that great. My dad's in pretty good health. They're both in their 60s. Or no, my dad just turned 70 in December. And I know that both of them would love to have a grandchild, but it's also one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I can deliver on this expectation. I want to so badly.
Yeah.
And I cannot. And so I think I do give myself a break in the sense of I do try to keep up with them on Facebook and, just check in every week or so, like, hey, how are you doing?
That's
Even
nice.
if it's, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've gone for so many years, like maybe 20 years or so, where I just don't even bother to check in with them unless it's a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be Christmas or your birthday, or my birthday. So like 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, they
I
do
feel
live in
like,
another country. That
yeah,
does make a little tough.
it's a different time zone. It's a different culture. Like, and I do appreciate that my parents are so forgiving in this like failure of mine to, I'm their eldest daughter, I'm their eldest child. And I think especially in the Filipino culture where I'm from, there's an expectation that you love your parents, you take care of your parents when they're old, and I'm not there for them in that sense either. So I'm just trying to work on it a little more. And I think it's not even that I feel like I've failed their expectation of what a good daughter is and how, to value your parents. I just kind of feel like if I don't make this effort, that I would be a really shitty person. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, all language is valid. You know that.
I just feel like it's that whole self-centeredness thing where because now I'm more aware of how self-centered I am and how much work and time I put into making my life better.
Hmm.
I feel like if I don't at least make the effort to connect with my parents while they're still alive, that I would be a really crappy human being. And so I'm just trying, it's an avoidance of being crappy. I don't know
Well,
if that's good
yeah.
or not.
I mean, I think if it helps, like, you're not a crappy human being, even if you miss a call with your parents or what have you. I mean, it's you're putting you have the right perspective, I think, in terms of like, I want to connect with my parents every once in a while, and sometimes that's not going to work out, and that's okay too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's difficult. I understand, and I empathize with that feeling for sure. For me, I sometimes feel this might get like, well, that's what the show is about. Known talking to myself.
I'm listening. I'm here for you.
Oh,
Come.
thanks, bud. When this was like before Jessica and I got married, and I had been going through sort of like a personal journey of my own. Basically, I was raised Christian, and I, eventually, like, kind of broke away from that, and it was sort of a long journey from like my late teens and into my 20s, and for a long time, I didn't tell my family because my feelings were that the response was going to be um, very judgmental and negative, and I worried. And so, but before I got married, I eventually told my mother, and my family found out. And the first response was, "Oh, I'm not going to go to your wedding."
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like deeply affected by that. I had gone through this sort of, a huge change. And I talked about this in episode 2 with Benjamin about like the grief of like falling away from religion. And it is a grieving process because it's what you know. And I came to a point where I realized it wasn't a thing that I believed in or was important to me. And the responses from my mother and others was deeply offending to me. It affected me on a deep level. And since then, and previous and or subsequent experiences, my mother telling me that we can never be close because I don't believe in God. Those reactions, just make, like, I love my mother deeply, but those experiences make me feel like, why am I putting forth the effort if she doesn't really feel like we're going to have a close relationship? Like, it's just, I'm still working through that myself. So I bring that up just as a personal anecdote to, like, we all struggle with sort of maintaining relationships and the nuances of them, and feeling like, oh, should I be reaching out more? All those things. I think everyone experiences that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally feel you. I relate in almost exactly the same way. I was raised Catholic, and I am now an atheist, and I think I respect the fact that some people believe other things than I do. I try to be respectful of that as much as possible. Um, Not even just the Christian religions, but just all other types of belief.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Um, but also, I think that's probably one of the reasons my dad and I don't talk a lot, because he also was raised Catholic, kind of became more and more devout as he got older. And now he's 70 and he's very, set in his ways. And I think that one of the reasons why I live where I live, which is in Los Angeles, is because, despite of what I was taught in elementary school and what I believed for a good portion of my young adulthood, I now believe that it's okay to be gay. It's okay to get married if you're gay. It's okay to have an abortion. Like, I'm okay with those things. That they're not, there's so many reasons I feel like I have more of a 360-degree view of those topics now versus the tiny sliver of, truth that the 1 degree that they give you when you're in school and being indoctrinated and being, taught the ways of your religion.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we don't talk. That's some of the few times that my dad ever posts on my Facebook wall is if I've posted something in support of Planned Parenthood or, love is love is love is love. And so I think that's disappointing, but I think it's also, I don't take it as an extreme point of failure. I know that my dad loves me. I still love my dad. He's a really good person. And I even still think of, I feel like I do have that understanding for how he thinks and believes. I don't know if you know very much about the political situation currently in the Philippines.
I don't.
There's a guy, they basically elected their version of Trump like a few months before our country elected
That's scary.
Our current president.
Oh, no.
He's he's a buffoon. And there's also this thing, which I don't want to misrepresent it. I'm sure people can go Google, like drug death squads in the Philippines. But there's this whole movement of sort of law enforcement being okay with people turning in and or meting out punishment on people who are drug users, drug pushers, drug lords, like that was their movement to get rid of drugs.
Wow.
Their response to the opium epidemic or, cocaine or even marijuana or anything drug related in the Philippines was like, yeah, just stick a cardboard sign on them. We'll pick the body up in the morning.
That's terrible.
And my dad, with whom I disagree on abortion, I do feel like most people that get abortions probably don't actually want to do that, but there is some circumstance in their life that has led them to this point of like bringing this child into the world is a bad idea. And we disagree very much on that. He, at least, I appreciate that he values life so much that he is in the minority, what I feel like is the minority over there of, hey, there's such a thing as due process. We cannot just go, judging these people and punishing them without proof and without, it's just willy-nilly killing happening.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I chose those words.
Willy-nilly killing, phrase, yeah. The
willy-nilly killing.
WNK.
Mm-hmm. And so I do appreciate that he does in that way. It's kind of like 2 out of 3 for me, that he does value life, because then it's kind of like, well, gay people are not all right.
Yeah.
They're all right. They can live, but they can't get married. I'm still just kind of like, this is all to me, it's all of the same, a very similar principle. And I don't know if I will ever convince my dad of that in his lifetime. And I think I've also come to the point where it's like, well, you know what? I tried. He's not changing. I'm not giving up on it. I'm just not actively working on it.
Yeah. And, to a large extent, it's not your job,
Yeah. He's an adult.
Yeah. So
he's been an adult way longer than I have been. And
let's talk about, as we sort of wind down a little bit, let's talk about some of the things we can do to combat the feelings of failure. What are some things that are helping you have healthier experiences with those feelings?
circling back to what you said at the very beginning, I think observing and then being in it. I think for me, a lot of the time, especially when I was younger, I would try to skip the being in it part. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm that person who, I learned to multiply really fast. Like, I learn things really fast, and I take pride in that. And but in terms of when I run into feeling bad, when I run into bad feelings or being depressed or being upset or having made a mistake, and then, I try not to be the person who wallows in it. But I also, now that you bring it up, I think I need to wallow in it a little bit more, because that understanding, I think, afterwards does get a little bit deeper, because you don't avoid the emotion of it. I'm not saying wallow in it for, months or years, as I sometimes may have. But just to feel in the moment that you're feeling your worst, just go ahead and feel it. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you have feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's not about wallowing in it. It's about being in it enough to sort of explore and understand and be patient and kind. And, I think that some of the things that have helped me is just understand that failure is oftentimes like a necessary tool to learn. It's
Yeah.
it's an inevitable human experience, and through those experiences, great chance for learning.
It helps you build resilience, I think.
Totally.
It's how do you last so long in a relationship, or how do you live so long with yourself? Because it doesn't even matter who, your friends are. Like, I have so many people that I've lost as friends, or that I couldn't be friends with because of failures that mistakes that I made in dealing with our relationships, that I regret having made those mistakes. But I think I did learn from those mistakes, and that my relationships that I have now are better because I, failed to be empathetic to someone in the past. And then I realized that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
That's
I
great.
can make an effort now to identify and be like, oh, I'm not being fair to this person. I had a thing recently at work. He's not my coworker anymore, but I think he's a great person, and I still consider him a friend. But he was like a little bit higher than me in position in our department, and we were constantly butting heads. We just had different ideas about how things should be done, and there were certain, me, type A, like, everything's got to be the best. Everyone's got to do it my way. And if you're not doing it the right way, I will tell you. I have no qualms about telling you you're wrong. Because I want, I work in customer service, and I, as a customer, would like to think that in customer service departments, when a failure to deliver on an expectation the right way can be identified and corrected, that department gets better at serving everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
But what I was doing to him was, and it wasn't consciously, I don't think, I wasn't consciously looking for his mistakes only. I look for everyone's mistakes. There's other people in the department, and I call it out, not in so much as like, hey, you're wrong. It's more of like well, someone should tell you you're wrong in this way, and here's the right way, so that the next time you run into this, you don't keep giving the wrong answer. I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
In my own misguided way, I'm trying to help you be better at this.
Sure.
But what I was doing was I was commenting we have like this shared, almost like a forum where we talk to other people, and we like record conversations. And I would in a private note, but that other people in our department could tell him what the mistake was.
Oh, I see.
I kind of felt like it was sometimes more like, well, I'm not telling you you're wrong as in like, you said the wrong words or whatever, but literally you told someone something was at 10 o'clock that's really at 9 o'clock. They're going to show up an hour early and be like, what the hell? You told me 10 o'clock. Like, it's more of those, I feel like I was trying to correct just facts.
Right, right.
But the way that I was doing it, where everybody could see instead of privately messaging him about it or talking to him face to face. So we had a lot of miscommunication going because people miscommunicate in email, in chat. You don't have that inflection of the voice, or you can't see their facial expression. And you just don't know how you're coming across sometimes. And he wrote an email to me and CC'd our boss and was just like, I don't appreciate how you always talk down to me and tell me that I'm wrong, and you're doing it, and you're showing everybody that I don't know these things. And I felt this kind of like, do you ever get this like kind of head to toe rush, like blood, like something's actually falling on you?
Yes.
Just like you're going cold and all your blood is rushing to your feet. I was having a physical reaction to reading this email.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And I think the culmination of all the relationship failures that I've ever had in 30 plus years of life kind of like rushed into me at that moment. And I got up. It was like Friday. I was leaving. It was like last 5 minutes of my shift on a Friday. And I walked over to his desk and I said, I just tried to be the most empathetic that I could be, of like, I just got your email. I'm so sorry. I'm not just saying this. I want to tell you the reasons why I was doing these things. And I can't promise you I will never do it again because, you know, that would just be an empty promise. It's so ingrained in me that this is how we fix these problems. But I admitted that I was wrong, and I admitted that I did it the wrong way, and I think I accepted that like blame for making him feel terrible.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a great story. And a great learning opportunity, as you pointed out.
I think it was. I hope it was, and I hope we continued to butt heads after that, but in a more amicable way. Where my hope was always, anytime we did have some kind of conflict, my hope was always like, I hope he doesn't think that I hate him, or that I don't hate him. I have problems with the way that we work together, but we can always talk about it and work through it and come out on the other side.
Well, we'll just make sure to share this episode with him directly when it comes out.
Oh my God, I wonder what he would say. I wonder if he'd be like, it did not happen that way.
Could be. I mean, but I think you did the right thing in that, because I know what you mean, like language getting sort of softened or just misinterpreted via text or email, like that stuff happens all the time.
I can be very blunt. I think this was in my performance review last year of like, you need to soften the edges a little.
Some other things that have helped me in terms of like combating the feelings of failure are just knowing that I'm not alone. Like this is another ongoing thing on You Me Empathy is we're not alone. My friend Beth Ann Patrick, who did episode 1, she says, it is just something all humans experience, and taking that, it provides me some comfort. Also knowing that like we can move past it. It's not forever. And then another thing is just like being transparent with ourselves is important. Like knowing that it's okay to fumble and fuck up from time to time. And one thing I find that sometimes I do and people do is like we're not even honest about the fuck ups. Like we're almost like rewriting history to make things feel a little different on the out at the end, So
Yeah.
like being honest about what those fuck ups were is important.
Yeah. And I think it's taken me, this long to figure out, up until like a year or two ago, to figure out that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're all, as we said at the top, we're all fallible humans trying to get by, trying to figure it out, doing our best.
That's all you can ask for, isn't it?
I agree. Totally. So, as we wrap up, we always end the show talking about our empathy heroes. These are people in our lives, people that have affected us, either alive or living, real or not real. Someone who is just doing great work in terms of empathy. Do you have any empathy heroes you wanted to shout out?
I definitely want to shout out my mom. We have a rocky relationship only in the sense that um, we both want the best. We're both those type A, we know the best way personalities, and put the two of us in a room together. It's like, ugh. We can get along for quite a while, but I think my husband and I went home to the Philippines for vacation for 2 weeks, and towards the end of those 2 weeks is really kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
But despite all that, and the times that we fought, or the times that, I haven't met her expectations or she hasn't met mine, I think we still both really love each other. And it's because of my mom starting those difficult conversations with me, before, to teach me to learn to have those conversations with other people.
Right.
And, I feel like she absolutely was the person who had the right to tell me, you're really self-centered. You're my child and you're being a terrible human being right now, for, any time that I had done something wrong, which I've done a lot. She loves to tell the story of when my brother was like a year or 2 years old, and I was probably about 7. I think I kicked him in the balls.
Every brother's most exciting moment in life.
He was a wee baby, and yeah, it was no fault of his own, and there was just something came over me. I just had to do it. So I love her for calling it out when I'm being a shit person. I really appreciate that honesty that she has with me, and I know that she's doing it because she wants me to be better, and she wants the best for me, and she loves me a lot.
Absolutely. That's great. That's wonderful. You telling your ball kicking story reminded me of, I did a terrible thing when I was just a wee lad. I threw a brick at my sister.
Whoa.
And it hit her in the back. And, it wasn't like, I think she got some blood and stuff, and it wasn't terrible, but I went so far as, like, interpreting that experience in crayon form on like, on like scratch paper, and sharing it with all my friends at school. So I was a little devil monster shit. And Claire, my sister, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. That was a terrible thing to do. Yeah, I mean, I was young and I didn't know really. Probably, I didn't mean to hurt her or anything, but I didn't. I think she forgave me. She probably will never forgive me for urinating on her pancakes, though.
Oh wow!
Yeah, same house. We were living in Santa Ana. Bars on our windows, sort of rundown, tiny house. And my mom was making pancakes one morning, and my sister like went to the fridge for like syrup or something, and or pantry or whatever, and I got up on the table, pulled down my pants, and started peeing on her pancakes, saying syrup, syrup. So I am a true American hero.
Whoa, I did not know that about you, known.
I'm kind of famous for that story, like with my mom's like side of the family. Because yeah, it's kind of a wacky story.
Can I give you one more?
Yeah, please.
So the peeing on your sister's pancake story, my brother is the total opposite of that. And it was very early in my empathy journey, and so I did not appreciate this enough. When I was in elementary school, most of the time I lived with either my aunt and uncle or my grandpa because they lived a lot closer to my school than my parents did. And I would only go home on the weekends. And I'm 5 years older than my brother. And so that started from around the time I was in second grade. So imagine me, I'm probably about 8 and he's probably about 3. And he really loved me. Like, they would go to the grocery store and he would be like, "Oh, can we buy 2 ice creams? One's for my sister." And it's like Tuesday. I'm not going to be there for days and days and days. And my mom would buy ice cream, put it in the freezer. And, he would just kind of like every day be like, "Is the ice cream still there for my sister when she gets home on Friday?" And I'd get home on Friday and my mom would be like, "Oh, your brother got you ice cream. It's really nice of him and thoughtful." And I'd look at it and be like, "Oh, it's coconut. I hate coconut."
Oh no.
And I feel like there was a long period, years and years probably, of that where it was just kind of like this weird lack of empathy that I had towards my brother when my brother was being really sweet and loving and just the best little guy that you could imagine. And luckily we worked through that when we were teenagers. And I do feel like we're both adults now. And I think that we both understand each other pretty well. I don't think we're super close, only in the sense that there's a very large geographical distance and a time zone difference between us. But I think we both, we've mended, and I've gotten better at empathy since then.
That's a good story. And, if it makes you feel any better, like, we're all sort of little monsters when we're kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's hard to like find that perspective as a kid while you're in it, because, your perspective is so narrow. Your life experience is
so
very
small.
narrow. So, well, my empathy hero this week is Brene Brown, who is someone who I've been sort of listening to her TED Talks lately a lot, especially this past week. And she has a quote that I really love. She says, quote, "If we can share our story with someone who responds with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive." And I just love that. And I think it perfectly encapsulates why Yumi empathy exists and why, I want to have these conversations. And so, Brene Brown, you're my empathy hero. If you're listening, which I'm sure you are, because this is your favorite podcast. Anyways, yeah, she's actually, I reached out to her people to see if she'd be on the show. No answer yet, but I'm going to keep trying.
Crossing my fingers for you.
Thank you. Give up. Well, Alethea, before we go, if you want to mention places where people can connect with you, kind of connect with what you're doing online, or if you want to promote anything.
Sure, absolutely. Most places you can find me, I am Fruit Juice. That's FROOTJOOS, kind of like Fruit Loops, but with juice. It's hard to explain. I picked that a long time ago at the beginning of the internet, and it was just easier to stick with it than to pick something else. I also... part of my empathy journey a few years ago, I got the first real pets that were just my own. So I have my cats, John Carter and Mars. They are John Carter and Mars on Facebook and Instagram. And I find that a big part of my self-care routine is to take care of them and to take photos of them that I can look at when I'm stressed out, and also share them with other people who get stress relief through looking at cute pictures of cats.
Don't we all?
So if that's something that interests you, that helps me, like I love seeing pictures of Scooby, because his just face is just so sweet, and that that to me is an easy go-to. I just need a break from my thoughts and my emotions, and I'll look at this cute puppy.
Yeah. Cool.
And I also blog about books at readnowsleeplater.org. And most places it's either Read Now Sleep Later, which it is on Instagram and Facebook, but some places that was too long. So on Twitter, we're RNSL Books. And I'm kind of hoping that I dropped the ball on this. We had an email going last month about you possibly sharing some books, because I write mostly about children's picture books up until young adult books, but you can really mention any books in the world that people can read that kind of move you along the empathy journey. So maybe we'll see that soon. I promise to reply to you today about that.
Yeah, no, I had forgotten about that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because
Cool.
I do definitely have some books that I could mention, and I would love to contribute.
All right, let's do it.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on You Me Empathy, Alethea.
Thank you, Noan.
And for you listeners, as always, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.